Alright guys, welcome to episode 69
of
EDH Commander Challenge. I am your host, BT. I'll be providing the play-by-play and commentary for this week's episode. A couple things to mention real quick before we get started. First, to Gamers Cafe, thank you so much guys for allowing us to use your premises to film this week's episode. You guys should check them out as well. Check out their online store and their Facebook page, where they have you covered for delicious foods and drinks. Not to mention everything gaming, from console and computer gaming to cards, and even board games. They do parties too as well, so definitely check them out. That's Gamers Cafe. Check out their Facebook page and online store. Second order of business is the missing 700 subscriber special. That was actually supposed to be out this week, unfortunately, because I kind of fell with the fever, as I was mentioning a little bit of last week. My week has been regulated pretty much to hospital, work, and bed. I'm finally getting back to normal. Hopefully, probably in the middle of the week, this thing will be gone for at least the next good while, and I'll be able to make sure that it's up and running. But I'd say the 700 sub special video is about 70 to 75% done. So hopefully the first week of December, it should be up. And last thing, as always, guys, I know people have been reaching out, by the way, on Twitter about how I've been feeling and saying that, man, you're almost getting to 800. We need that 700 subscriber special before we hit 800. And believe me, I'm working on it. So hopefully I'll get that done between now and next week Sunday. Maybe I'll even release it a little bit earlier as an apology to you guys for how patient you have been. So I'm very grateful for that. You guys are awesome. And of course, as of the recording of this video, thank you for pushing us to over 760 subs. We are so close to 800 and closing in on our goal to 1,000 subscribers. So give you guys a hand. You guys are the best. Without any further ado, let's introduce this week's players. First, we have Armin, who's using his Meren of Clan Toth deck. General we haven't seen on the channel since episode 3. He keeps a hand with High Market, Command Tower, Forest, Polluted Delta, Bane of Progress, Protein Hulk, and finally Vampiric Tutor. His opponent, and our newest member of the EDHCC family, Kevin, is playing his Teferi Mage of Zhalfir deck. And he keeps a hand with Mana Vault, Vidalcan Shackles, Mystic Confluence, Fact or Fiction, an Island, a Condescend, and finally a Preordain. With their dice roll off camera, it's Armin who will be starting us off. So let's get this match going. Let's go. Armin plays a Polluted Delta and passes. Kevin plays a Fairy Conclave into play tapped and passes. During his end step, Armin pays 1 and sacrifices his Polluted Delta to search out a Bayou into play. He then uses the Bayou immediately by tapping it for a black to cast Vampiric Tutor to place a card in the top of his deck. For Armin's turn, he casts a sweet Sylvan Library and passes his turn. Kevin plays an island and casts Mana Vault before passing the turn. Armin pays 8 life from Sylvan Library to gain 2 free extra draws. Then plays a Command Tower for his land. He then casts Phyrexian Arena to get even more card draw for next turn. But Kevin counters it with a Condescend for 3. Then Kevin scries 2, as Armin can't pay the mana. Then Armin passes the turn. Kevin takes his first damage from his own Mana Vault during his upkeep, since he can't pay to untap it. He plays another island and casts Back to Basics. Jeez. That's a rough card. Then Kevin passes the turn. Kevin doesn't pay for Sylvan Library this time. He plays a high market for his land and tries to circumvent his mana problem by casting a Devoted Druid before passing the turn. Kevin takes another damage from his mana vault, then plays another island and casts Preordain, letting him get some draw power and some scry in there. After which, he passes. Armin pays another 8 life for Sylvan Library, attempting to look for a way to get back on track. He then casts a Deathrite Shaman and passes the turn. Kevin takes a third damage from his mana vault and simply plays an island and passes turn. Armin pays another 4 life to get an extra card from Sylvan Library. He then plays a forest and passes the turn. During his end phase, Kevin casts Factor Fiction, revealing the top 5 cards of his deck. The 5 cards revealed are Negate, 2 Islands, Phyrexian Metamorph, and an Isochron Scepter. Armin makes his 2 piles, and Kevin scores the Metamorph, Negate, and 1 island to his hand. For Kevin's turn, he takes another damage from his mana vault, and then repeats the same process as last turn as he simply plays another island and passes. Armin doesn't pay for Sylvan Library this time. He casts Jiraga Tree Speaker and then passes the turn. During his end step, Kevin then plays Mystic Confluence and attempts to bounce Armin's trio of mana buddies back to his hand. Armin responds by removing his Polluted Delta in his grave to tap his Deathrite for a mana, and pays 2 more mana with his open land and druid for 3 total to cast Beast Within, destroying Kevin's back to basics and giving him a 3/3 beast token in its place. The spell then resolves, and the 3 mana buddies return to Armin's hand. He then moves to his cleanup and discards down to 7 cards before his turn is complete. Kevin takes in another damage from his mana vault, then plays another island, and moves to combat, attacking Armin with his new 3/3 beast for 3 damage. After that, Kevin passes the turn. Armin again doesn't pay with his Sylvan Library, and finally hopes to begin implementing his strategy now that Back to Basics is gone. He plays a Llanowar Waste for his land. He then recasts Deathrite Shaman and Devoted Druid. Then casts a Reclamation Sage, destroying Kevin's mana vault, and passes the turn. During his end step, Kevin flashes in his general Teferi, Mage of Zhalfir. Kevin's turn begins, and he goes straight into combat, attacking with both of his creatures. Armin blocks Teferi with his Sage, and takes 3 damage from the beast. Then Kevin passes the turn. Armin again does not pay for his library. He pays 3 mana, including his Llanowar Waste, where he uses it for a black mana, taking 1 damage, and casts Liliana, Heretical Healer. In response, Kevin casts Cryptic Command. He chooses to counter Liliana and draw a free card. Then Armin casts Sylvok Replica, but Kevin counters him again with Hinder, placing the replica on the top of Armin's deck. Then Armin passes the turn. Kevin plays another island, Then he animates his fairy conclave and moves into combat. Kevin attacks with all 3 of his creatures. Armin blocks Teferi with his Deathrite and uses its effect to exile his Bane of Progress in the graveyard to gain 2 life. We then move to damage. He gained 2 but lost 5, so essentially losing 3 life. Then Kevin passes the turn. Armin doesn't pay for library and pays 7, including tapping his Druid twice, placing a -1/-1 counter on it, and casts Protein Hulk. He leaves his high market open as a sack outlet for the Hulk to ensure he'll be able to use its ability and gain a life on top of that. He then passes the turn. During his end phase, Kevin casts Impulse, looking to find an answer for the Hulk combo. Kevin's turn begins, and he plays Sour of Temptation, looking to steal the Hulk. Armin responds by sacrificing it. Kevin makes the most painful move on any episode of EDH CC that I have ever seen, and casts a Stifle to counter the Hulk's effect. With his last hope snuffed out and Kevin's incoming combat phase, Armin scoops it up. Welcome to Cardboard MVP, where we have a quick look at the card that did the most work for each player in a game. Starting with the Meren of Clan Nell Toth deck. Considering he was up against a control counterspell heavy mono blue deck, and I didn't really get a chance to see anything like discard spells or cards that prevent cards from being counterspelled, he did the right choice, in my opinion. I'm talking, of course, about Armin, in using Sylvan Library to be able to draw more and more resources to be able to either run out the counterspells or overrun them, being able to play multiple spells in a turn to be able to force the player to shift his focus to other targets. So Sylvan Library was great, although in my opinion, while it is indeed a staple that belongs in any deck that runs green, it does come at a price with 4 life per card. The game might have been very different if Armin was able to get out his Phyrexian Arena, considering that while it doesn't let you draw as heavily as the library does, it does allow you to draw an additional card every turn at the cost of only a single life point. So definitely would have loved to see a rematch against these two somewhere in the near future, and if he got that card out, what would have happened? And of course, the Teferi Mage of Zhalfir deck, well, you could make the argument that virtually any counterspell that he played was the all-star, such as Cryptic Command, the Mystic Confluence that bounced several creatures, and not to mention the Hinder that essentially not only countered the spell, but also skips the person's next draw, thanks to placing it back to the top of the deck. But in my opinion, the card that did the most work overall for Kevin was that Stifle. Stifle is a really, really painful card to be up against, especially when you have a big play like Protein Hulk. I've mostly seen it over the last few years played against people who go just to go get fetch land just for fun. And someone actually used it once against my colleague, which was hilarious. But I've never seen it used on Protein Hulk, because that was a pretty good plan that Armin had towards the end, and it got completely snuffed out. So I'd have to say in this case, for the Meren player, it was Sylvan Library, and for Teferi, it was Stifle. But what do you guys think was the card that did the most work for each player? Let us know in the comments down below. Alright guys, that's it for this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed watching. Just want to let you know, if you aren't already part of our ever-growing EDHCC family and you want to join in on the fun, make sure you smash the subscribe button and the notification bells down below, and you'll know every single time a new video drops. Now, we do videos every single week. So don't forget as well to like them, share them, comment on them, but most importantly, enjoy them. Shout out to all of our family members, our subscribers, our viewers, if you will. It is an honor and a privilege to do this each and every week, and you joining on the fun with us. Until next time, I'm your host, BT, reminding you to check out all of the videos on the channel. Join our game. It's now your turn. Cheers!